Hello, and welcome to the commentary track for Goblin issue 5. I am Solomon Mars, creator, uh, artist, writer of the Goblin series, which is volume 1 of the 555 saga. I'll start off talking about this cover. Um, Gosh, where to begin with this thing? I really enjoyed, I set out immediately to create sort of a slightly menacing cover. I wanted it to be kind of intimidating, or I wanted the character of Jay Mephisto to be kind of intimidating. At the same time, I wanted him to show his some of his ability, his power, and I also wanted to make the cover slightly appealing. So I used red and green, or red against green, which are like the natural opposites. And I thought it came out fairly well, mostly because he pops out of the scene, but not so much that it's irritating. Like there's not a lot of vibrating going on this, which is usually what you get when you put red against green. There's not a lot of vibrating, but he definitely sticks out a little. I thought that I thought the logo also kind of worked as well, considering its color. It actually works fairly well. It doesn't jump out too much, and it doesn't take away from the character. The character draws your attention first, and then everything else within the picture. Um, I did have a couple of problems with it initially. Well, not initially, but later on, once I was compiling the actual issue into Flash, I found that the file was actually corrupted, and so I had to have a friend of mine, LD, help me to recover this particular file. Thankfully, he was able to help me. In the end, I love the little floating eyes in the mask. And those are actually not technically not Jay Mephisto's eyes. They would be the spirit that's trapped in the mask that he wears, um, and he's seeing through the eyes, pretty much the same way that Jeff sees through Sankofa's single eye when he's wearing them. Jay Mephisto sees through this spirit's eyes. Uh, but it's I mean it's still his vision. It's not like his vision changes in any way. And so I guess we'll start with a black slate, and this is the final part in the Worm's Plight mini arc. We start with Jeff drooling there. Ugh, gross. He wakes up and he's in a little pain. Wakes up on the floor. You know, if you've ever slept on the floor, you know it's kind of painful when you wake up the next morning. You're a little stiff. I thought it was interesting, as far as sort of that spontaneous writing, that I just immediately wrote Jeff to call for Sankofa, and then to call for Amy, which I don't know, in my head, uh, the relationship between Jeff and Amy, or I shouldn't say the relationship because that's misleading, but the friendship between Jeff and Amy is much further along, and so I oftentimes write accordingly, and I just sometimes forget, but that the issues that I'm writing for aren't as far along as the story is in my mind, so I often have to I have to pull back a little and try to write from a different perspective, like sort of write where they should be instead of where they are in my head. Where they are in my head is pretty much at the end of the story, and so their friendship is a lot closer. It's a lot more solid than it is in this actual issue, for me. Um, I'm not even sure if that's spelled right, but I won't even get into that. Oh, there's this wonderful slug creature. More research on caterpillars and sea slugs and all sorts of marine life. I was looking into uh, sea sponges and just coral and all sorts of things, just to play around with textures on his body and the actual different parts of this creature. I just looked into all sorts of things, looking at all those, and just I want because I wanted to get a lot of the colors sort of. I wanted them to look sort of tropical, um, and uh, just really colorful and bright, and not in that normal sense. Like I didn't want them to look like bright forest land. I wanted it to look very bright, unusually bright, like you oftentimes see on a tropical ocean floor. You see very bright, vivid colors, and I wanted it to look a little out of place, um, just because of it's the specific species, and I wanted it to seem like, well, this shouldn't be here. I wanted, and so those colors and the textures that I used helped that a lot. And there's that name, that calling of Jeff, which is later um, touched on in a later issue. Hmm, that's really getting to him. He's even drooling there a little. Yeah, it just kind of fades away. Oh, I'm looking around, just kind of realizing, oh, there's that incantation, a form of steady holding, which is definitely one of the first incantations that a logic smith will learn as far as binding incantations or incantations of imprisonment. And that's one of the first ones that you'll learn. And this one is more complex than your basic incantation, but it's still it's complex enough that this particular animal, won't be able to break out of it, especially in its weakened state. But it's still something that Jeff. Well, he probably couldn't do this exact one, but he could do one close to it. He probably can't break it though. You know. Yeah, and see, that's what he's saying here. Yeah, and I was just really playing around with a lot of effects in this issue, like playing around with visual effects, trying to convey this world of logic, and how it, even though you can't physically see this shield at first, if you reach out and touch it, then it sort of materializes, and it's sort of almost like uh, electricity. Those I actually don't know what they're called. Those Tesla globes. I don't even know what they're called. They have the static electrical pulse running through them, and if you run your fingers along the tops or around them, it follows your fingers, or wherever you've touched. It's sort of like that, and that's kind of what I wanted to convey. Um, Jeff realizing where he is, and seeing what looks kind of like a storage room, but it's a room with no door, which to a logic smith generally means one thing. Yeah, you've been trapped by another logic smith. Yeah. Uh, uh, oh, something's going on. Oh, oh, oh no. Hithix larva. The Hithics originally were a lot more vicious than they actually turned out to be in this. And it was really I wouldn't say a last minute decision because I decided early. I decided pretty much at the thumbnail stage not to make them as vicious as they were. They originally spewed a corrosive venom. They would just kind of spew it out, spit it, and that's what this particular scene was originally. Instead of them just kind of hissing while raising their heads, they were kind of spewing at Jeff, and that's why he needed to really get out of the room. He was very desperate. But mostly now it's just the situation is just that Hithics are just really aggressive and it could be dangerous to be in the same room with them. Or not well. Yeah, I'll say dangerous. It's not something. It's like being in a room with a lot of hungry birds. A lot of hungry birds. You know, normally they wouldn't come near you, but they're hungry and you look like, a source of food, or you're just kind of irritating them. Yeah, it's not good to be in there with a bunch of hungry and or, angry birds. So he throws this. I love this throwing scene, the little shirt popping up there. You see his stomach. That's funny. Bang. I'm just gonna hit some. But there are more. Oh. I'll be honest. I almost 100%, probably about 96% hate the beginning of this book because I stuck Jeff in this room, this empty room, and it's just so boring. But initially, I just wanted it to start off kind of blank slate and then work its way up and become more and more complex as the story goes. I just didn't think about how I would do it exactly before I jumped right in and just committed myself to drawing and coloring it. I didn't really think about how it would look in the end, and looking back at it now, it's very boring. And Jeff here, once again, using blood as a catalyst for logic. And this whole scene, another one that changed. Originally, Jeff was not supposed to walk through the wall. He was supposed to punch through the wall. I decided to make him use a low-level incantation, you can tell because it was blue, to walk through the wall. And it's not something normally he would be able to do, which is why he's really just like, wow, he can't believe it. And he's like, he has to tell Sankofa, because while it's a low-level incantation, it's not something that Jeff has ever been able to do before. And so it's just surprising to him. But I decided not to go with the original with him punching through the wall because I just didn't want to repeat a lot of the same elements in the first few issues. I wanted to show sort of varying displays of logic throughout the mini issues, and I didn't want Jeff to just do a lot of the same thing, punching things, running places, jumping and diving. I didn't want to repeat the same things over and over and over again. So I decided to switch it up in creative ways, and I decided, to use something that I was planning on using a little bit later in the book, and just go ahead and use it now. Yeah. Oh, he's such a klutz. Clumsy, clumsy, clumsy. A lot of texture. Oh my goodness. So many textures on the wall. Ugh. These guys. I love these guys. The contrast between them. You have this tall, sort of thin guy and this short, sort of squatty guy. I love his upper torso. It's just so funny. And then just kind of, just on patrol, just regular guys, just doing their job, all this other craziness is going on all around them, and they're just talking about being hungry. That's funny. And then the voices start back again. And we switch over. Now we're with Amy and Moo and Jeff. There was an actual sequence where I showed Jeff going upstairs, and I'll be honest, that's just boring. That's just boring. It would be completely fine if it were being animated. I would have been completely okay with showing Jeff walking up the stairs and trying to stay out of the line of sight for the patrolling rune claws. But in this comic book, I didn't think that would be too interesting to look at. It makes plenty of sense to show those scenes, but not to actually have to sit there and read through that. It's just boring, and it took away from the pacing. It slowed things down, and I really needed things to get to a certain point in the story to kind of finish the arc. I'll be honest, I had grown very impatient with this mini arc. By this point, I was tired of it completely. It was almost falling apart because I had changed it so much, and I actually talk about that in the earlier commentary. But Moo and Amy being a little overexcited, and Jeff, oh, it's okay. I saw you get stabbed, and not being able to explain it in any way. Maybe I'll explain it in a later issue. Ha ha ha! And I love all the piping and the steam valves and the gauges and the vents and everything. Oh my goodness, what is going on? And oh yes, a very large version of the slug that we saw earlier. Yes. Oh, with electrodes all over it, man. I'm not even going to talk about how many different versions of this scene happened. I'll just say a lot. I do enjoy the leaf-like antenna on these slugs, with the membrane in it. So it's this translucent layer, and I drew under it with the brush on a layer that was that had multiply layer effect on it, and it just kind of, I don't know, I like the way it turned out. It's fun. And here you can kind of see that the skin of the slug is slightly translucent. It's not an effect that comes across 100%, but that's definitely what I had in mind. You can sort of see the guts inside of it, which is something I remember from being a kid. Some insects, you would look at their bodies and you could see their skin was actually thin. It looked really solid. When it's shining in the sunlight, but when you got really close, and if you hit the right angle, you could see through their actual exoskeleton, and you could see their organs inside pulsating and stuff. And only certain insects that I can remember ever happening. But I just remember being fascinated as a kid, and that's what I was conveying here. And Amy explaining how she came across these poor creatures when she first came to Dunburst, and explaining that she's letting the reader know that she's not from that town. I'm really taken by the eye in this particular scene is bigger than I normally draw Amy's eyes. It's really expressive. It's so strange that I decided to keep that. Because she's supposed to have really smaller eyes. They're not supposed to be that large. Definitely not that full of life. um, but anyways, Jeff telling her that he saw another one downstairs dying. Yeah, nobody would help her. Nobody from town. Well, everyone was afraid of the room claws, so no one would help. Um, yeah, this is also where the town gets their power from, um, which was definitely originally in the story. That was an original part of the story. This is where the town was getting their power from, and this is why they shut down at night. Well, this isn't exactly why they shut down. There's a later reason why they shut down at night, but they were conserving power because it was coming from a live power source, a living power source. So you can't run that all night because in order for them to use a living power source, like a living battery, they had to. They're basically farming these things. They had to let them grow to maturity, um, and it's really sad. And again, showing a physical representation of the actual logic incantations. Jeff kind of touching it. The effect did not come across here well at all, and I'm going to just skip past this page because I hate it. Um, I just panicked in the end. I kept doing this page over and over and over, and in the end I was just like, forget it, and just went on to the next page. I actually enjoyed this one because again you can kind of see the inside of the slug here. It's really interesting. They're talking about breeding the Hithics and why, and Jeff kind of putting two and two together and realizing that they used that a long time ago, logic smiths would use Hithic's blood to open a channel to the higher universe. And he was like, they were like amplifiers. Hithic's blood, it's like an amplification. And sort of in the same way that blood is a catalyst, one's own blood is a catalyst. There are other bloods that are also catalysts for different areas, and somehow early logic smiths discovered that Hithic's blood was a catalyst, and they actually use it as a channel to the higher universe. And I'm not going to get into too much on things about the higher universe in this commentary. I'll talk about that more in a later commentary around Goblin issue 7. Yeah. And they were importing these things from the Southlands, obviously, because they're only found deep in the Southlands. So it's like, who would do this? And it's like, that might be. It's a good question. Enter the old lady, sitting on top of a water sprite, a actual Adoki in a different form, which is a little rare. It's kind of rare to see a Doki in this particular form, but it is a Doki. It's not just that is the specific type of sprite that it is. It's a Doki. Yeah, and she's the one that actually created the room and put Jeff in it. I love this comment. She's more intrigued by the reality that neither of you are what you appear to be. And Jeff is like, he just completely ignores everything that the old lady is talking about. He's like, why are you sitting on that thing? He's like, you just look stupid sitting on top of that. And Amy being slightly shocked. That's just Jeff being Jeff. She does look stupid on top of that. But hey, I love her nose. So bird-like. I went through a million different sketches trying to come up with this old lady. Trying to make her look menacing enough, but old. And I definitely found it was in the nose. I wanted her to have that sort of arc, that sort of arcing sort of shape, that sort of swish. I don't even know how to explain that shape. There's Sankofa trapped. And Jeff rolling up his sleeve there, basically doing exactly what I was saying I didn't want him to do, which is why this this sequence of events happens. Is because um, Jeff's character always writes himself, and he always writes himself to punch things. He's a very. I always end up writing him to run and punch at things, and that's where he was going originally. And I actually took out the running sequence in here. Like the next scene was he was supposed to run, and then this was supposed to happen, and instead I just cut the running out because it looked really stupid. And just had him being picked up into the air by this old woman who is clearly more adept at logic than Jeff is, and he's just dumb for taking her on. And I had fun with this, like the effect on this, just kind of showing him he's just being pushed through just through the air just so fast, and it's just awesome. He's bleeding a little, which is actually a no-no. To show him bleeding from the mouth from something like that means that his internal organs have been damaged, and we'll just have to play along with that, and just ignore that fact. Oh. And then she goes into her little exposition and just talking. That all ends tonight. But what she's saying is kind of true, that, and I wanted that to sit with people a little, to let them get a better understanding of what was going on, and that she's saying that that Jeff really he doesn't treat logic with respect. It is sort of like a toy to him, and that people behaving the same way that Jeff did essentially is the reason why the world is kind of in the place that it is in now, to where logic is feared more than it is respected or enjoyed. And it's because the wrong people got a hold of it. And while she sees herself on the side of right, she's still even herself in the wrong. And she's just from an older generation. She's a lot like Sleemer, except on a different side of the same argument. Like the same perspective, but just a different group arguing the same thing. And I like this incantation, creating hands and arms out of the floor, out of the marble that the floor is. And I honestly think it's squeezing the characters a little too tight. Really is. Jeff just calling out a stupid old hag. And then we show the old guy from earlier who was talking with Pinion. We show him all dressed up in his ceremonial outfit. Sacrifices to the Unlimited One. And there were some extra sequences in here where I showed them walking around the mansion and going downstairs, and I just thought it was too much. I cut a lot of scenes out of this issue because they were unnecessary. It was unnecessary visual details. So I don't know. I just went with these simple visual ideas. 87 years they've been trying to find all these pieces. Into the ceremony. They've been trying to find all the pieces to that, which is part of what J. Mephisto had in the previous issue. He had a piece of this artifact, this logic artifact, and it's hooked up to this machine that has. I actually originally meant to show it, and I'll be honest in saying that I actually forgot. I forgot to show. There was supposed to be a scene where it showed the interior of this machine, and that it had Hithix blood inside of it. It was like a battery, and inside of the battery was this liquid, and that's how it was running. And I feel really bad for forgetting to show that. There was supposed to be a scene where it got busted open, and it wasn't in my. It was in one of the first versions, the first incarnations of this story, and not in the third version. So it just kind of got left out. It happens. And this is when we first mention the Holy Order of the S. Definitely get used to that name showing up. Definitely. This is not the last time that they will show up. I can go ahead and say that now. They will be mentioned several times, and this is not the first time. This is not the last time they will show up. This is the first time, not the last time. I had fun with that floor. The diamond checker design. Yeah. Don't really want to explain too much about what the Order of the S is about, because that is something that is explained in the actual book. Not this issue, but as the issues play on, and they play a slightly more prominent role. I kind of enjoy this scene. Just kind of a nice glow on there. And Amy calling Momo. Momo actually got cut out of this scene. There was a shift, and when I was finishing the picture, there was a shift, and Momo got cut out of the picture. That sucks. There wasn't a whole lot of him in there, but there was certainly more than you can see. And there he is eating. He just eats. He's an eating machine. And Jeff kind of weirded out by the whole situation, which is understandable. It's a little strange. He'll get used to it, though. This old guy. I love his little red nose. And everybody in there chanting. Scene was supposed to be so much more epic than it is. I was supposed to show like all the people in this meeting hall all chanting together and stuff, and I was just, like I said, I was so exhausted with this book that I just got lazy. And it's really sad to admit that, but it happens. It does happen. And that's what I try to avoid now, is trapping myself, that's something that I think, not necessarily, I don't know that all artists, but a lot of the artists that I know have run into this same situation where kind of write yourself into a corner, and artistically, and you end up committing to visual ideas that you don't really want to do, but you feel that you feel obligated to have to do, and or just visuals that you don't find appealing, and so you don't put you don't put your heart into them, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. If it's not something that you're enjoying working on, then definitely don't do it. Find another way to convey that same image, that same imagery, that same scene, that scenario, find another way to do it. Walk away and come back to it and approach it from a different angle. But don't, whatever you do, don't commit. Don't think that you're obligated to draw that scene just because you maybe you've penciled it, or maybe for so long, throughout the process of thumbnailing and sketching and things, that same scene kept popping up. Don't think that when it comes down to the final version of the book that you have to stick to that picture. You can change it up, and I just ignored that so much, and so I ended up with a lot of pictures that I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy penciling. I didn't enjoy coloring, and I didn't enjoy seeing in the end. Um, Let me try not to make this commentary so negative. Um, I actually did enjoy the colors. I enjoyed the different greens. Oh! What does he see? Oh, blood. What is going on? My goodness! Are you all right? You're bleeding. He's, oh, I'm just fine. I love the little eyes, the little beady eyes just pop in, and then he throws off his outfit. And I don't know when Jay Mephisto went and changed clothes, but it's not. It's not relevant. It doesn't matter. He changed clothes. That's all that matters. And he's suited up. Yeah, his little fat face. He looks like an old woman there, not an old man. Oh, something happened over there. He gave that old guy quite a scare. Uh-oh. You having a heart attack? Maybe. Um, I switched these sequences. I actually did. I had it so that Dolclot actually appeared before these pages happened. Before Jeff said, "What was that?" But I thought this worked better, where he says, "What was that?" And Amy's like, "I don't know, earthquake." And then we see Dolclot, and in her, because Dolclot is a female, in her strong, I don't even know what you call it. It is just sort of a strong form, I guess. One of the many forms that a Doki can take on. They can change. They're shapeshifters, so they can take on different forms. Yeah, I'm just kind of like looking at these pictures. It's been a while since I've actually looked at this issue. I've been avoiding this mini arc for a long time because I felt like I went completely in the wrong direction um, with it by rushing it and not playing out the entire story. Um, so I often avoid it because I just wasn't pleased with it. But it's okay. I'm okay with going back to older stuff now. I'm just kind of looking through, and yeah, that is a weird, like the way the floor is just breaking up right there. That should be a painful fall for them, but it's not. Yeah. I actually do like this, uh, the idea that they don't have a soft landing; they fall on people. I like that. I like stuff like that. They knock these two old guys out. Mm. And it's just people. I was supposed to actually show, again, more scenes that got cut out. I was supposed to show people running away from the room that Jay Mephisto and Doclot were in. I didn't. Mm, unfortunately. There are casualties. It's a fact of life that sometimes things like that happen. Uh, you set out to help someone or something, and it doesn't always go perfect. And that That's something that I learned early in life. I remember there was a situation where some friends and I found um, a bird's nest that had been knocked out of the tree, and the little baby birds had fallen out, and we were like, we must have been about fifth grade, I think. Uh, yeah, about fourth or fifth grade, maybe fifth or about fifth. We had to have been about fifth grade, and we didn't know what to do. But I did know, I had heard that um, a mother bird would not uh, take care of, it would not return to the nest and feed the baby birds if they had been touched. If something else has touched them and they have a different scent on them, it will not return to them. It will ignore them. And I remember I had read that early on somewhere, who knows where, and I knew that, and I was like, oh man, because um, immediately one of my friends touched them, picked them up and stuff, and I was just like, well, this is bad. Um, but we couldn't really think of any other way for to get the birds back into the nest and put the nest back up in the tree. We couldn't think of any other way to to save them, and so that we tried our best. But unfortunately, we didn't know any better, and so we tried to take care of the baby birds on our own, and we fed them, and we didn't know what to feed them. And one of the suggestions was to feed them bread. You can maybe you know where this is going. Bread is not a good thing to feed a baby bird. It's not a good thing to feed any baby animal, really. That's that small. Bread swells. And, it didn't turn out well. We tried to help, and it really didn't turn out well. Yeah. And it's just one of those early things, as a kid that doesn't necessarily scar you, but it stays with you for life. Um, and kind of changes you a little. It builds, it creates, you know, that definitive character of a person, and so that's definitely one of these. That's one of the parts of me that comes through in Amy, and is definitely in this story, in this sequence here. Oh, oh gosh, that particular sound effect right there, the bachoosh, which is not supposed to be read like that. More so, just actual sound. None of my sound effects are ever supposed to be read literally like they're written. They're more so me trying to express an exact sort of sound that can't be verbalized, really. But that sound effect, I must have gone over that thing a million times. I went over and over and over trying to find the right font and the right stacking of the letters. Um, yeah, man, I can't believe and that's something that I definitely don't do now. It's a rule now that I generally don't spend more than an hour on a page when I'm coloring, and I definitely don't spend more than 30 minutes when I'm lettering. Um, just because I personally could sit for hours and hours coloring one panel and trying to get my lettering perfect. I could spend an hour or two, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help at all with the book. I had fun with this, like showing this different form of the water sprite that the old lady was riding. Um, I really, really liked this form, and how it floats above the ground instead of walking like Dolclot does. But and then its eye is in the center of its chest. I love that, and a little energy popping out of it, pushing Dolclot back. Uh, it's a very powerful force to be able to push something that big, just pushing Dolclot, and then picking her up off the ground, and just swinging her into the ceiling like that. It's just great, just great. But of course, the whole time the old lady is actually controlling it. Uh, yeah, I don't know how I expected to actually excuse me, get this scene across where the the um the water sprite turns its head. I don't know how I expect it to convey that, since it doesn't have a physical. Well, it has a head, sort of, but no recognizable face. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, so I just had Amy say, "Oh, it's looking at us," which is one of those things that I generally am opposed to, having something explained versus just showing it. But this was one of those scenarios where it's like there's no other way to show it. It doesn't have a face. How is it really looking at them? Yeah, it reaches out at them. I love the fire burning in the background. That's awesome. Um, I had a lot of fun with the fire effects in this. Um, this is definitely the beginning of me making that transition from where I would make the flame on Sankofa's head, something that I drew by hand, into something that I drew within the computer. This was one of those things that just convinced me to go ahead and do that, and it would be worth it. As far as a visual element to make it look better. Um, and yeah. And I don't know, this scene was just supposed to be a display of, for lack of a better term, Jay Mephisto's badassery. Um, I just wanted to show, that he's like this, just, I don't know, just chaos. But he's controlled chaos. And he actually enjoys fighting and stuff, and he enjoys a good challenge. And he's just really having fun with this old lady in this water sprite. And he's kind of toying around with her, but he's just kind of really enjoying it all. Oh, I love this picture because of how bright it is. All of a sudden, and in this really dark comic, like the colors that I used in this comic were a lot of dark colors, a lot of blues, a lot of darker ocean greens and things like that. And in the middle of this book, you get this bright panel, just random, and it's really good. He's spitting the fire up, which was something that I decided that he did a lot early on in some early concept sketches of Jay Mephisto. I decided that was one of those things that he did. He would spit fire out in like a burst. I just thought it was kind of fun, like breathing fire like a dragon. Mm. And that wasn't actually a hand done font. It really looks like a handwritten font, but it's not. It's just it's a font that just really looks really marker. It looks like someone did it with a marker, but it's an actual font, and that's why I chose it, because of that look. And I know that it kind of creates an inconsistency amongst the fonts, the sound effects rather, but I think that kind of works. It gives each sound effect, each sound, its own personality, because they really shouldn't all be the same. And I've seen that a lot in some books where they use the same sound effect font for every single effect throughout the book. And so it kind of creates this sort of bland, sort of kind of look, instead of giving everything its own distinct personality. Which, I mean, when you think about it, all sounds are distinct from one another, and so why not represent that in this visual format? Yeah, he's enjoying. Gosh, I can't. It's so weird that he's enjoying that so much, but that's his character. And Amy just finding the whole thing just disagreeable. And it really is. It is a little. It is kind of. It's madness, Yeah. Jeff's head is really big in this picture. Oh well. Ah, yes. I liked this picture because, or at least this sequence, because of one thing, and one thing most of all. The little flecks of the little embers flittering through the air, just kind of floating away, the little pieces of ash and ember floating around in the air, along with the smoke and stuff. I really, really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed making them. And since this issue, I've just enjoyed them more and more as I've played with fire and things burning. That sounds really, really bad, I realize, but I assure you, I am not a pyromaniac. It's, wow, this is a really weird scene. The floor is, I love the floor. It just came out so well, considering that it's a layer under him. Where I did it, I did this using the shape tool, just kind of making the shape and then crossing over it with a different shape, and then I took it and I stretched it out using the what is that tool? It's the transform tool, and I took it and I flattened it out. I stretched it and flattened it out so it looked like the floor was flat under him. But originally it was almost, right behind him when I drew it. It was almost flat behind him, and then I took it and I turned it down. And I was actually, really happy with how a lot of the book came out. The second half of the book, rather. Um, yeah. Captains of industry, friends, lost. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like this cult, the Order of the S. That's who they are. They're merchants and captains, leaders of industry, captains of industry, people in positions of power. And, it's definitely something I'll touch on more in later issues and explain what this is, what they are. Ah, this is cool. This focus, out of focus, in focus, and how they are. They think they really are like Sleemer, where they think that they're doing this for the betterment of the planet, and they're just really adding to the chaos. Really, they are. Oh, and Amy freaking out back there. Jeff just kind of, oh, what is that? Oh, what is that? I'm not saying. Yeah, but I do remember some people, some readers, being a little upset with me after this issue because I started I what it seemed like happened was I started a lot of things and then I didn't give any resolution. There was no resolution, and the thing about it is, I've said it before. I don't believe in instant gratification. I definitely believe in uh, kind of telling a story over a lengthy amount of time, to where different parts sort of fall in. They fall into place. And this is just one more piece to an overall story arc. Story arc over the entirety of Volume 1. It's one of the final pieces, but it'll definitely make more sense in later issues. This little thing that seems like I walked away from something that I started, and it's not true. It's kind of a teaser, but not. It'll make more sense once we get around to that part of the story again. Um, yeah, the unlimited one. And Jeff just kind of flying off the handle a little here. Gonna punch an old man, or is he? Nope. Just a lot of anger. Just not understanding and just being angry, not understanding at all what's going on. And that's the interesting thing about Jeff. He just he's a strange kid. Man, more of the ash and the embers floating around in the background there. Oh no, Sankofa. Oh no. They find him in this little jelly orb, sort of like it's actually like a little giant raindrop, and it's really just an incantation created by the old lady and the water sprite, you know, which is what she uses a lot of water-based logic. Um, that's something that I don't actually get into a lot. Is the elemental side of logic, because it's something that I wanted to stray away from uh, talking about in too much detail, because it's really unimportant, um, because I don't categorize logic in ways of elemental base. It's not elemental base. It's just kind of universal, and it is energy. And while uh, you could practice in a specific discipline, um, like this old lady definitely practiced in the discipline where she knows a lot of water-based logic. It's not necessary to do so. It's not necessary to the story. Um, so I definitely don't linger on it for too long ever in any of the stories. Um, well, no, things are falling apart. You gotta get out of there. I'm trying to change the pacing up so that there's not too much talking going on. I didn't want them to sit there and have exposition, so I threw a rock in there. And then a quick look back at the ceiling, and nothing was going on at the ceiling. And that was me kind of hinting at something later that will later come up. I actually like this. I like this picture. It's just the room just filled with smoke that's rolling across the room, and flames in the background, and embers and ash. And I really like that, and it shows like the scale of kind of this building. It's big, how big it is in contrast to them. I like that. I really started enjoying myself as the book came to an end. In this picture, that's awesome. J. Mephisto on top of this thing. Oh, that's awesome. Digging his hands right into it, and just his hands are on fire, and they are melting into this thing. This water-based thing. It's just like you can see he burned off its hand, and it's reforming, but it's kind of melted. And he's pulling that old lady out. He's a ruthless, ruthless dude, but you have to be sometimes. When you're fighting someone that's pretty much just as powerful as you are, you have to be ruthless, and that's exactly the kind of character that I wanted J. Mephisto to come across. I wanted him to seem sort of mild mannered in the beginning when I first introduced him, and then I wanted to show just how tough he was later on, and that's where I'm at now, where he's just like, he's not angry. Like, everything that he does is very calculated. He's very observant. He's just like, well, he notices Jeff and Amy. But he also notices. I like that little squint there. He also notices that this old lady is trying to do an incantation, and he's just like, nope. And he shuts her mouth. That was actually supposed to be a 2-panel sequence where I showed movement other than the arms, and I just got lazy. Sorry. Yeah, and he just burns her alive. And it seems really, really, really ruthless and just kind of heartless, but uh, for the character Jay Mephisto, it's not. It is it it makes sense. It will make sense as issues play on, not only for his character but for his role in the story. Things like this will definitely make more sense. But I needed to show that he wasn't a just a visually dynamic character. I didn't want him to just be, all bark and no bite. He is a vicious character. He's not heartless, but he is not someone to be trifled with. And I wanted him to seem threatening. Uh, finally running away. And somebody's talking. What is the shadow on the pillar up? Oh no, not him again. I had to bring him back one last time. Just to kind of bookend this. Yeah. And he takes off his mask and you get to see his face. And I had to show his face because I put so much work into the development of him. When I first created this character, for some odd reason, of all the different rune claws, this guy, I kept drawing him over and over and over and drawing his face over and over and over. And I finally ended up with a face that I really liked. And then I thought about it and I said, wait a minute. These guys wear masks most of the time. Why am I doing this? And so I decided he had to come back just so I could show his face. I really enjoyed his nose. Yeah. He does look goofy. I thought I would comment on it through Jeff. That's just kind of Jeff's character. That's cool. I had fun with this. Oh, he kicked him. Jumps up in the air and kicks him. I realized that Jeff really hadn't done anything. There wasn't anything dynamic that happened in this issue as far as the character of Jeff. Jay Mephisto did most of the fighting and most of the action in this, and I wanted to end it with Jeff doing something. I really like the spit flying from this Runeclaw's mouth. That is great. The movement in there, that is great. I forgot that it looked like that. Wow. I had a lot more fun with the end of this book than I did the beginning. You can really tell there's a lot more detail. The coloring is stronger. Wow. He has some funny eyes. He's a really funny looking character. I love that. He's so wonderfully cartoony. Yeah. This is a horrible thing for Jeff to do. But it's great. He bends out of reach. He does a little handstand. Whoop. Whoop. He's basically choking this guy. He pulls him up, over, and slams him onto the ground. That's great. His friend's just kind of standing there like, ooh. Oh. And I guess Amy technically would be a little amazed at seeing Jeff doing this because she hasn't really seen Jeff in action, really. Not yet. She only saw him for like 2 seconds with Sankofa on before she was stabbed and before Jeff himself got knocked out. But yeah. And she makes this odd comment, which is another one of those things that we'll talk about in the later issues. And Jeff, are you talking to yourself? I like the donut shape of that guy's black eye. Yeah. Yeah, this was great with all the the ash and the embers and the smoke pouring out of all openings on the building. That was fun. It was a lot of fun. Especially as the doors are opening. I was actually going to do a sequence where the doors opened. Like, it was going to start with the doors closed, and then when they opened is when the smoke would come out. But it just doesn't work unless it's animated, and I'm not willing to animate Goblin. I'm sorry. So it just, I don't know. I just left it at just this one scene. I figured, it comes across well. And then running away, climbing up the side of the mountain. They came down earlier. Or they actually didn't come down. That they were looking down earlier. Wow, and you can see like the entire top of the building is just burned right off. The entire mansion roof has just been burned right off. Yeah. And Jeff making a comment. He's like, all those lives lost for what? Greed, mostly. It's true. Up, up. And I don't know. This scene at the end here was added, it was actually added later. It was not a part of the original thumbnails. It was added, much later. Because it made more sense to me that if there's a fire at the edge of town, people in town are going to notice it. And they're going to come and see what's going on. And so I decided to add that. Instead of just having Jeff and Amy run off, I decided that this should happen, this little conflict. And then Jeff, being him, just grabs Amy and jumps, takes off. He just kind of jumps up. It looks like he's flying, but he's not. He's just jumping really high into the trees. It really did look like he was flying. Ugh, I regret not showing him land in the treetop. Yeah. Yeah, and then I talk about the fact that these people are, without a doubt, at least to Jeff, they are definitely knowingly helping the Crimson King. And really that's what his entire, that's kind of why he was so angry at this whole situation was once he realized that these people, this whole mining operation was happening, these people knew that they were mining for the Crimson King's war campaign. And he couldn't stand by and let that happen without doing something about it. Without being angry at least about the whole situation. And Amy, kind of being a humanist, and still just like, people needing to make a living and feed their children, and Jeff kind of seeing it really as definitively good and bad, and not people being in desperate situations, but, helping someone who is killing people. He's a tyrant and he's out there killing people and destroying towns, and in Jeff's mind, that town could be next. They're helping the Crimson King, and the following week, that entire town could be destroyed because the Crimson King decided he wanted to destroy it. That's the kind of person that Jeff sees him as, and that's the situation that he sees this as. I mean, it's just a bad situation, and yeah, this little argument between Amy and Jeff is kind of stupid, but I needed to get across some of Jeff's reasons for just not liking the Crimson King at all. Explaining why he's so angry, and his motivations and things. but then just kind of like, Jeff being very realistic about it, where he's arguing, and then he's just like, why are we arguing about this? He was like, why am I arguing? He's like, I don't even really know you, and I'm arguing with you, and it's just like, it wasn't worth its time, and he needed to take care of Sanctify, so, I'm gonna go do that. He knows what he wants to do, and if Amy wants to do something different, so be it. Then they can go their separate ways. But Amy, it's just like, well, I'm just gonna stick with this guy. Yeah, because he did at least help her. He tried to help. Unlike anybody else, no one else tried, and Jeff tried. So hey, she might as well finish her travels. Traveling with him. Uh, yeah, and that is the end of the Worm's plight. Or is it? Yeah, and then we go to the sequence in the woods, in the middle of the woods. I wanted this picture to be a lot darker. Like, I wanted to really look like it was nighttime, and this wooded area was being lit by this single campfire. And here you see J. Mephisto flipping through a book. And you can see the tattoo on his back, which is one of the how to explain, the books of enlightenment that he learned from, that he learned his logic from. It's Aquos is, I think that's the name I finally settled on. I've changed the name so many different times. There's so many different ways of writing it. It's from Latin, and but it has its plural form, its singular form, and things like that. And I think I chose it has a neutral, singular neutral, and I think that's the one I chose, which is Aquos. Yeah, but it's I guess I can actually go ahead and mention that it is a sign of chaos. Um, it's one of the signs of chaos. It has arrows pointing in several directions instead of one direction or two directions. It is arrows pointing from a central spot in more than one direction, and that's one of the signs of chaos. But it doesn't mean anything necessarily bad. It's just kind of one of the elements of logic. Logic is chaos, the balance, and order. It's all those things. The universe itself is composed of these things, and so to be a well-rounded logicsmith, you have to dabble in a little bit of all those things. You have to have a good understanding, a healthy understanding, not just dabble in those things, but you have to have a healthy understanding of those things, all those different things. And that's really just one of the things that one of the first books of enlightenment that J. Mephisto learned, and it is one in particular that he's dedicated to. And I am wrong, I believe. I believe I am wrong. Now that I think about it, my memory is really shot. I can't believe that I just said that it was Aquos, and I don't think it was. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's Aquos, which is not his primary book of enlightenment. That's not the book of enlightenment that J. Mephisto learned from, first and foremost. I'm so wrong. I can't believe it. The book that he learned from is the book of armaments, but we'll get into that more in future issues. But yeah, he learned from the book of armaments, and Saint Cecil, the patron saint of shotguns, if you can believe that, which is a leftover from one of the oldest versions of Goblyn, one of its old incarnations. And oh, there's Doklat pops around the corner in her normal Doki form. And you see how J. Mephisto actually survived that gunshot. Was Doklat actually took care of him, kind of treated his wound. And they're talking about the fire in the mansion. Doklat went and checked on the situation and made sure that there was no trace of anything that they had ever been there, or what was going on there, as far as the Order of the S. Kind of hinting at part of J. Mephisto's mission was to kind of go and erase any trace of the Order being there, which kind of explains his viciousness. He's just kind of setting everything on fire, and it was really to destroy all evidence of what was going on there. Yeah, and yeah, he's really just trying to investigate things. But I find this most interesting, and I'm not actually sure that people understood what was being shown here, because nobody ever made any comment to me about this last sequence in this issue, and in here, J. Mephisto is looking through this book, and he's showing it to Doklat, and Doklat makes a comment, "Oh, the holy beast." Okay, so, and he's talking about, he's like, "This isn't a sprite; it's a logic artifact, a living, breathing logic artifact." And he's talking about how it's the rarest and most valuable one ever, and he's talking about how people have been looking for it for centuries. And then in the next sequence, I show what it is that he's talking about, and he says he knows where to find it. And what is being shown in that picture is someone's depiction of Sankofa. And I don't know if anyone really recognized that for being that, but that's exactly what that is. It's supposed to be someone's depiction of Sankofa. And it was supposed to be how sometimes when you look through older books before they had photography and it was just illustrative representations, you look at like a lot of early illustrations of Egypt when they first started finding and uncovering the pyramids of Egypt, when they started digging them from underneath the sand, like when Napoleon went to Egypt and he started rediscovering all the buried pyramids and things. A lot of artists traveled with him, and they were drawing. They did a lot of sketches, and you look at a lot of the sketches, and you look at the actual images, and you can see how they didn't quite understand what it was that they were seeing, and so their interpretations are a little off. And the same thing happened when artists first traveled to South America and started depicting the Aztec and Mayan temples and things like that, and their different sculptures and the artwork and things like that, and they just didn't know how to interpret what they were seeing very well. So they did the best they could, and so they're a little off. And that's what I was doing here. The artist that drew this picture of Sankofa didn't quite know what it was that they saw, and so this was the best way they could convey it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anyone really put two and two together, or if anyone recognized it for being just that. If they did, no one ever mentioned it. No one went, aha. But I guess it's not necessary for people to let me know that they got it. I just, I guess ultimately it was a bigger revelation for me than it was for anyone else. I made a bigger deal out of it than everyone else did. Oh well. All right. So yeah, these are just the artist comments, just silly stuff. So thank you for joining me through another commentary. I'm sorry that this one was a little bit more negative than most of them have been. Um, I had to be honest when talking about this particular issue because uh, I just really was in a bad place when I was working on this book. Um, and I don't know, just didn't really have a great time finishing working through it. And but it was necessary. It was definitely necessary. So hopefully I'll you'll be with me on the commentary for issue 6, where the story started going bi-weekly, and so it's 6A and 6B, which are going to be split into 2 separate commentary tracks instead of doing one all the way through both issues. Um, and thank you again. And